Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, thank you for joining me. I'm Katie and today is a UPCRATE unboxing video. If you've not seen me unbox one of these before, UPCRATE is a mystery art supply box and we're on box number 11 of July. But not the 11th box of July, you know what I mean. On first impressions, it's going to be a watercolour kind of box this month, which I'm never going to turn my nose up at. I love using watercolours, so having a few more to the collection is always a good thing. As well as surfaces to work on, we also have a paintbrush, a pencil and a strange gadget. We also have a print by the artist Snow's Art, so make sure you check out their social media, as well as stickers and additional prints, as well as our letter. So let's talk about what is inside the box. Well, first of all, let's get into those watercolours. They are by Winsor & Newton and they are the Cotman watercolours. We have 6 colours and the first one is Emerald, which is in a 21ml tube. We've got a big tube of that. And then the other tubes are Cobalt Blue Hue, Permanent Rose, Purple Lake, Intense Green and Turquoise. The paintbrush that we have is a Lineo Series 192 Sharp Watercolor Brush in size 8, and it's a synthetic hair brush, and I don't use it to create the swatches with because I don't want to ruin the brush mixing the paints up and getting them activated. But let me tell you, that is a nice brush. The paper we have to work on is made by a company called SMLT, and that's authentic watercolour paper. It's 280 GSM and it is made from cellulose, so there's no wood in there and there's no cotton there, it's made out of cellulose. The pencil we have is a bog standard HB pencil made by Factice. And the strange gimmick we have this month is a sponge can. And I wasn't really sure what to do with this. I used it to soak my watercolour page, but the only time I've seen them before is when I worked in an office and you'd use them to dip your finger in so your finger would be wet and you could flick through documents quicker. But like I say, I managed to get some use out of it in soaking the page, as you see in front of you now, as well as cleaning my brush off in between dunking it in the water. This month's UPCRATE battle prompt is Magical Fantasy, and that is my kind of prompt, so I thought it would be a great excuse to draw a dragon. I did this off screen because I needed a better surface and not so flat surface to work on than my desk, so I pre-drew it out using the compass, doing that Art Nouveau style thingy I do in the background, and using the pencil that came with the box to do the rest of the outlines. Now I know you're all used to a certain style of dragon that I paint, but I thought I would make this one a little bit different and make it a little bit more fantasy-like rather than it being all cute or particularly themed on a horoscope, which is what I've been working on mostly just lately anyway. I also thought it would be nice for it to be holding a magical globe, because why not? This is what I wanted to do. So let's talk about the supplies. So they swatched out really nice the Winsor & Newton Cotman paints, and I've used Winsor & Newton Cotman before and not had any problems. I've usually had them in pans. However, I did find with these tubes they just behaved and applied a little differently to what I'm used to with the pans. I don't know what it was, they just seemed a little bit gloopier compared to what I'm used to before. I hope I'm describing that in a way that makes sense. I don't feel like they quite bloomed as much as I wanted them to on the paper. However, it's not as if they weren't workable, and I love the colours, they are nice and vibrant. UPCRATE does recommend doing a couple of layers to really make them vibrant and saturated. However, in some areas on here I didn't need to and they were absolutely fine. I just wish they bloomed and travelled across the paper a little more, and maybe that might be the paper, or maybe that might be the paint, or maybe it's a combination of the two. But that wasn't a bad thing, that's just more work for me, and I love painting so I don't mind. The paper itself, I found it quite hard to describe it. It seemed like a very dry textured paper, and even though I soaked it and it remained soaked, it just I don't know, before I started adding the paint to it, it felt dry and it was quite rough, but it was quite interesting to paint on, so it was an experience. I wish there was a few more sheets though. I've noticed just lately that there are getting less and less surfaces to work on, which, I don't know, it's a bit of a bugbear of mine with boxes. It's not the end of the world, I've got plenty of supplies to keep going, but it would just be nice to have a few more sheets of paper, and that's why I swatched it on a different watercolour paper at the start, because I want to use the paper for more than just swatches. Now the paintbrush, the Lineo watercolour paintbrush, that was amazing to paint with. I have not had such a nice watercolour brush for ages, and it just maintained its shape. It held on to quite a lot of water, it applied the paint beautifully. I could do quite fine details with it because of the shape it maintained, but then I could also do a good wash. And yeah, that was really good, and I might look into treating myself with them because there's a 5% off code in the box, so I'm like, let's do it. So let's talk about the painting. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I love the colours. I had to mix up as best as I could a blackish colour, or at least something where I could do the outlines, but again, having a restricted palette like that meant I would mix a colour that would complement it rather than it standing out too much, because I didn't want that. I wanted it to look quite natural. I also went for, like I mentioned at the start of the video, a slightly different design for my dragon. I wanted it to complement the shapes more rather than it standing out. I wanted it to be more of a motif, I suppose would be a better way of putting it. Now, I must admit, I was so tempted to reach for my masking fluid pen, or just any masking fluid really, just because of how intricate I made this on the smaller surface that I've done it on. But I managed to overcome that by just really working into the areas. Some of the paint stained the paper and some of it kind of lifted off and reactivated okay, so areas where I might have gone over, it was easily resolved and it wasn't the end of the world, and it just adds to the charm of it. All in all, I'm pretty happy with this box. It was good fun. I'll get some use out of those paint tubes. I'm just going to have to work a little differently compared to other paints I've used before, or the Cotman pans, but it's still nice to have an additional selection of colours. The paper was interesting to work on, and I think I might play around a little bit more with the other two sheets that I've got. I was happy that the masking tape came off it quite nicely though, as it did concern me how dry it was as to whether it would rip half of it off. So that is this month's UpCrate box, and I hope you have enjoyed watching me unbox it and create with it. I feel like this month I've had quite a few mystery boxes to open, so I hope you haven't minded me doing that. But it is always nice to have surprise mystery art materials. I just want to say a massive thank you for watching, and I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, give me a thumbs up. If you want to drop a comment down below on what you think of the box or the painting, by all means go for it. And if you haven't already, why not hit that subscribe button, because I do quite a few of these kind of videos. There should be a couple of videos suggested on the screen if you want to watch some more. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next one. Bye!